The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, my name is Brian there. Hope everyone can hear me. Just doing an audio check there, making sure everyone can hear me. Perfect. Excellent there. Thank you for the response. Well, I hope everyone's doing well this evening. And for those new in attendance, my name is Brian, and I hope everyone is here to not only learn some more about Horizon, but learn how you can improve the general appearance of your reports and more or less create some captivating reports that your clients are going to love, impress some agents, and perhaps maybe even make some of your competitors a bit envious. Now, in previous webinars, we've focused on report writing mistakes, how you can improve writing your report, things of that nature. So today, we're really going to focus on how you can improve the visual appearance and cohesion of your report, make things flow a bit better, so that way at the end of the day, your clients have something that they're really impressed by and you're really satisfied with. Now, for some of our veteran Horizon users, a few of these tips may be a bit old hat, but I feel they're pretty critical for the success of any Horizon user. So I'm going to go through those regardless if you may feel that they're a bit common hand at this time. As far as today's agenda is concerned, we're going to cover two things: the actual tips themselves, and then there will be a Q&A period. Some of the tips, in fact, most of them involve some changes within the actual software. And there's a bit of a brief high-level tutorial throughout each of the tips that I'll present. But in case you'd like a more in-depth explanation, I'm definitely here to help you out after the guided tutorial. Now, for those in attendance, just also bear in mind that if you have to perhaps drop off at any point, this will be recorded and available at the end of this week, or provided not the end of Friday, beginning Monday, as there will be a holiday, I know, for most people in the USA for Thanksgiving. So this will be published at the very latest on Monday for people to look at in case they need to watch it later on as well. So without further ado, let's get actually into the meat and potatoes of why we're here, and that is to improve the appearance of our reports and make them quite captivating to our audience. And the first tip I have for you is to prioritize your recommendations. Now, by prioritizing recommendations and having them appear at the beginning of each house system, it really provides the critical information upfront to your client. When you combine that with, say, your photos, your comments, it's also really the most detailed section of the report, and it helps capture the attention of your reader early, which hopefully means that they're going to continue reading through the rest of the report. And in my experience of looking over a couple thousand Horizon reports, I simply think that it looks better this way and tends to read much nicer. As far as the descriptions and your limitations, well, I'm going to suggest that you place your descriptions second and limitations third. Tongue-tied there. This information is not as important to the client, and it's primarily used to adhere to your standards of practice, so it can be nestled away behind your recommendations. Now, as a side-by-side comparison here, I've got my descriptions on the left-hand side and my recommendations on the right there. And we're going to look at a roofing system first. And the first thing we have here is the standard format that you'll see in Horizon. Now, you'll have to forgive me, I have relabeled some of my report sections. So general information to me is the description for perhaps many of you. Limitations I've called inspection methods and limitations, and I also rebranded my recommendations. So bearing in mind the actual labels there, you can see that this is pretty much the standard structure of a Horizon report. Looks quite nice, but as you get to the bottom of this particular page, you can see that our second condition here with cracked, it has unfortunately pushed the images onto the next page. So there's a bit of a disjointedness, if you will, between the recommendation and the photos that complement it. Now, if we go to the recommendations first, we're still looking at the exact same issues. This is the exact same report, simply structured a little differently. You now see that we have both of the conditions and their respective recommendations present, the accompanying photos, and the reader gets a better understanding visually of both issues. And if this is the first page of your roofing system, And after the summary, it's really the first page of the report. This really draws their attention in. Obviously, this roof is quite a mess, and will hopefully capture their attention and get them to continue reading through the report. Now, this is just page 1. So let's go to page 2. And again, you can see here where on the description side, the photos have appeared at the top of the page in relation to the previous recommendation. So although for you and I, quite experienced in the home inspection industry and know what we're looking at, that's obvious to what we're viewing, but for the everyday person, maybe a first-time home buyer, that is something that may not necessarily connect to the previous page. And why make them have to make that connection when we can just simply have the report appear a bit better for them? The other concern here, or issue if you will, is that at the bottom of the page we have our third recommendation and the illustration, which is great. You know, we have 1,700 of them, over a third of which get auto-populated for you, and I would encourage you to use them. The only thing, excuse me, the only thing is the photos have now been again pushed down to the next page. Where if we favor the recommendations, you're able to see the entirety of our granule loss, including the photos, in one page. Now at the bottom of the second screen, we also have an additional comment, so a my item, if you will, that helps cap off the recommendations. Now this is a 3-page roofing report, so as we get to the third page, you'll be able to see here we have the photos that again are disjointed from the recommendation and the comment that you saw on the previous page under my recommendations to finish this version of the report, where in comparison, now to cap off my roofing system, I have my description and my limitations as a nice summary to the system itself. As another example, we'll just go over an electrical system, and again, the formatting, nothing to complain about. It's just when you get to the end of things and you're looking to really add that extra wow factor to your reports, make things just really cohesive, these small tweaks can make a big difference. And especially when agents nitpick reports with a fine-tooth comb, these are things that can really make you stand out, get them to come back and want to use you for their reporting. You can see here again in comparison, we have our recommendations neatly positioned one after the other. So we are favoring the recommendations to give the meat and potatoes at the forefront of each system, continuing the trend of getting the information to the client, and so that way as they're reading through, they don't have to jumble about between learning if it's a 100 amp service, when the reality is if that is sufficient for the house, that's great. If it wasn't, you'd probably make a recommendation about it being undersized. So in this case, you would have a recommendation that would concern them more so than the actual service size itself. So we're favoring what is important to the client here. Again, to finish this electrical system, you would have the photos from the previous recommendation. They're disjointed, whereas we again cap off with the description and summary of limitations. The same pattern more or less repeats itself in the exterior. The only thing here is that when you have an illustration, at times illustrations, depending upon how much content you might have included in the recommendation, will force itself onto the next page. And in comparison to the previous examples where we only had perhaps the recommendation at the very end of the page and the photos appearing at the next one, we have perhaps, a third of the page open with excess white space, which I'm sure all of you would agree is visually unsatisfying and we would like to avoid, and probably all of us have unfortunately encountered this quite a few times in our reports. Whereas again, favoring the recommendations, this is the last time I will repeat this one before I move along, but I really feel strongly about this as it will structure your report in such a way that everything lays out much nicer, cleaner, and you'll have the reader's attention from start to finish. You can see here where on the second page of our exterior, the illustration and photos are present, yet there is no related recommendation, and you don't necessarily want them to have to scroll up and down to get this information. And you can see here in my opposing side, we have to cap off this third system are description and limitations. So even if you have multiple recommendations like you've seen, or a recommendation that includes an illustration, favoring recommendations will allow you to fit two nice and neatly onto the page, or have one with an illustration and even an additional comment at the bottom in case you like to write extra narrative. Whereas if you have descriptions first, you'll find that it's largely disjointed and you won't have as nearly as nice a uniformity to the report. I did see a few questions coming in. Now, I will be addressing questions during the Q&A period, so I do apologize that I won't be addressing them individually at this time. I will assure you that if you've missed any component of this, I will be glad to go over that at the Q&A period again. So just bear in mind that I will be addressing all of your concerns at that time. So moving along, we're going to go into a brief overview of a how-to. And again, this is just a quick high level. We can go into more in depth in the tutorial portion. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to go to Profile. This is in your account. Under Section 3, Report Config. Beside My Items, you'll see there's an extra option called Change the Order or Wording for Descriptions, Limitations, and Recommendations. You go to Settings. From here, we can use the Sort Order on the left-hand side. Basically, use the up arrow. Don't click it too fast. You got to let it move up one position and then up another one. Once you got it into position 3, you're good to go. And again, descriptions and limitations as second and third. All right, so we're going to move along to our second recommendation or tip here, which is relabel report sections. Now, the report sections to me are, again, recommendations, descriptions, and limitations. And I would suggest that you consider relabeling them and give them a more personalized touch. You know, whatever that means to you is certainly different. I'm more on the, I would say the more positive side when it comes to labeling things, but others are more technical, or sometimes they're more just straightforward with, say, words of deficiency or restrictions. But definitely consider giving them a more personalized touch. And what I mean by that is, say, Carson Dunlop, for example, they consider recommendations as now observations and recommendations. And they also changed limitations to inspection methods and limitations. Client feedback basically told us those were easier to understand, a little less technical. So at the end of the day, we want clients to be able to interpret the report and not have so many questions that they have to come back and nag us about, right? So at the end of the day, what we want to do is, if, for example, you like the word observations as opposed to findings, or you like the word inspection methods and limitations over limitations, go ahead and make that change. And the reality is, you know what, if you focus on the positive, clients are going to be more appreciative. It's a simple change to make. If you were considering making this change, some of the suggestions that we have are observations and recommendations, or a little less wordy, findings and recommendations. I've also seen deficiencies and notes. When it comes to the description, in my personal experience, I tend to actually consider it more of a general information section, right? We're talking about if it's an asphalt shingled roof, but not any general concerns of it, if it's 100 or 200 amp size. So it's pretty much general info to me. And for the most part, it's general info to the client. So I tend to think of it as general information. System, tongue-tied there again. System summary is another one that I've seen, and building components even. For limitations, I agree with Carson Dunlop in calling it inspection methods and limitations. A little bit long on the tongue, but it actually speaks more to what it is. You know, we're describing the method of inspection on the roof. Limitations are more situational and hopefully few and far between. I've also seen it called restrictions, which I don't mind. I think it's straightforward. Even seen what I couldn't inspect, which, I mean, I give the guy credit. It was not necessarily what I would call it. Now, just in the same vein as where we were previously, you can actually make this change in the same section under Report Config. Go back to that same settings. This time, all you're going to do is use the Edit button on the right-hand side. When you click Edit, you have the ability to change the custom title. Max 40 characters, right? So if you need to, go into Word, make sure you got the proper amount of characters. And after your custom title, there's also a shortcut name. I haven't actually changed that because the reality is I haven't had much of a use for it. Where it really comes into play is when you're trying to use search on, say, Horizon Mobile. You could do, for example, chimney space rec to find any chimney recommendations. So if you change this around to, say, find, well, find's actually 5 letters, so I would have to, pardon me, find is 4. I need to learn to count. If I change it to find, I could do chimney space find in order to achieve the same effect. Little egg on my face with the number of counting there. And ultimately, you're going to have to click Save to save your work and update that change. Now, bear in mind, this won't update any of your old reports that you've generated, so only future reports that you do create will, in fact, reflect this change, but it will be immediate at the report writing screen. Now, for Horizon Mobile, you just got to do a full sync, right? From the home screen, full sync updates it and will reflect these changes like restructuring the report. All right, let's go to tip 3 here, which is optimizing your report photos. And I think this actually ties in with a question from the audience here. So what I suggest is to optimize your report photos, take them all in landscape. Landscape photos simply appear best. This style of photo not only fits in the report better, but it also helps eliminate excess white space and annoying page breaks. We just saw them in previous examples. So take them in landscape to avoid these hassles, make your report fit better, look better, and at the end of the day, all you have to do is turn your phone or tablet to the side, or if you're using a digital camera, you can go into the settings, set it to landscape, and that will make all the difference. Now, when it comes to taking these photos, I know sometimes you're looking at an object that's perhaps taller than wide, right? Maybe you're looking at perhaps a furnace or something of that nature that's more rectangular and vertical. Well, you know what? Don't worry if unimportant parts get cropped out. Focus on the main subject. And I also suggest that you take photos from multiple angles. So don't be shy about taking 3 or 4 photos of an issue. You can ultimately cherry pick which photos appear in the report back at the report writing screen. So take a few more and then be selective with the ones you include in the report. That also lends itself to having to reduce the need to markup, because if you're taking photos from different angles and perspectives, you're getting a good clean photo, you won't ultimately need to actually point out the condition or the issue within the photo, as it will be a bit more self-evident when it's displayed across perhaps 2 or 4 photos in the actual report. I would also suggest that you include photos in pairs. Pairs simply look better than in individuals. And going to the different perspectives or angles, you could simply walk in a bit, take a photo of the actual issue itself, and then standing a few feet back, take a wider view of the actual issue. This allows the client to get different perspectives, and ultimately in the report, it helps flesh out the report, if you will, and fill it from side to side much nicer. Going to a side-by-side comparison again, we are first going to look at the portrait style on the left-hand side. You can see here that I have 2 portrait style photos to demonstrate that we have the branches and vines interfering with the wires for the service drop. Now in this case, the first photo, you can see where it is and I've circled it, and the second one, considerably harder to see where the wire is using the arrow. And in this case, I needed to take and use those markups to further demonstrate that. Now, you know what? Ultimately, these photos do help display the issue, but look at all this empty white space. And if I had just put one photo where the middle arrow would be, imagine how much extra white space would be. I'm sure all of you have seen this, perhaps even in your own reports. Then, again, hate to beat a dead horse, so to speak, but you see at the end of the report this empty white space and the photos pushed down again. Simple solution, take them in landscape. Not only do the photos fit much better side by side, eliminating that extra white space, but we also have the second condition appearing underneath it. So we now have some nice uniformity, both pieces of information present. And then as we move along, again, another example of that under roofing, where we have, again, two photos of the same condition. So I always, regardless if you are dead set on taking things in portrait or not, take the photos and put them in pairs. There are two different perspectives of the roof and areas that you can showcase. Unfortunately, that unsightly white space, the empty space at the bottom due to the page break, take them in landscape. You can also take as many photos as ideally you would like. Now, I would suggest that if you're using Horizon Mobile, that you're going to sync often and sync regularly. So that can influence how many photos you ultimately want to take, because you don't necessarily want to take 300 photos, go back and try to sync. That is just certainly a byproduct or causing for hassle. But if you can sync perhaps every 10, 15 photos or entries, that is certainly fine. With regard to taking and uploading photos, say from a digital camera, 250 photos you could easily upload into the back end of the report. Now, I'm not to say there's a limit per se with regard to taking them in the mobile app, but I would say that, 100, no more than 200 for an inspection. 200 is quite you have to either have a really poor house or a fairly large house with significant issues to take that many that you may need directly in the app. So I would say safe bet, maybe 100 to 200 at the very most, feasibly for any inspection within the app, and 250 you can upload at any given time directly inside the report on the computer or on Horizon Web, pardon me. Going again into another reference here, we can see that in this case, unfortunately, the illustration is there. Great, perfect, I love it. However, because the photos are in portrait style, they are unfortunately pushed down to the next page, which creates that disjointedness that we're trying to avoid to create these captivating reports. We don't need people to keep thumbing through things to find what's important. And if you spend all this time taking these photos, well, let's get them to appreciate it. So here we can see taking them in landscape, a simple orientation twist. And I mean, if you're standing up on the ladder, it's not that hard because you already got one hand on the ladder rung. You just got your other with the camera. Being a little daredevil, you just put it to the side, take your photo. This is another perspective on the other side of the roof, and you just move along. So it's a simple twist there, or again, digital camera. I'm a favorable of using Horizon Mobile, so again, I'm twisting my hand because I use the mobile app on the phone, but for everyone else, if you're using the digital camera, simply set the setting, take all your photos, set it, forget it, like the old infomercial. So let's go ahead and move along to our fourth tip here. And this is about where to place reference photos. And what I mean by reference photos are photos, for example, of, say, the electric panel, or perhaps you like to take photos, general photos of the roof and show them in the report. I tend to consider those reference photos. So forgive my terminology if you use a different term, but that's what I consider them. So for today, we'll play with that approach. Now, reference photos, in my opinion, can be pretty hard to place in the report and still maintain a really clean, uniform look, because depending upon where you put the photos, it can really result in a jumbled mess of information and visuals. And in order to achieve a really clean, uniform look for the report, and especially if you like to include these reference photos, these are largely photos that you find in the description, mind you, I would suggest that you actually use a dedicated My item for each system. And this way, you have a specific spot that these photos within, say, the electric system or for the roof or exterior are always positioned. So that way your reports have a nice cohesion, and more specifically within the report as they're going through each system, if you opt to take photos in a specific pattern, then each system has that same pattern and flow to it, and it's visually appealing and makes it easier to read through the report. So not only should you create a My item, in my opinion, but I think the best spot for this is actually general under the description. And excuse me, by having this at the general section, it will appear at the start of each description. If you are taking these photos in real time within the app, you can actually search for your My items and then simply have the photos already linked to the item. So by the time you sync and get back to the computer, it's ready for polish and publish. As a reference here, Again, because my reports favor recommendations first, and the overview item that you're seeing at the top of the report we'll address in our next tip. But you can see here that my second section, the general information or description, I have 2 reference photos of the roof. Now this roof is in great condition. There was no issues present with it. So that's why you can see above it, I have no roofing recommendations were offered. This is an excellent spot to position those photos. And below it, I then have a summary of the roofing components and the way the home is facing. As opposed to perhaps having these photos under, say, asphalt shingles, which would mean that I see north, asphalt shingles, photos, and then aluminum. It doesn't have the same nice flow to it. Another example here for the electric panel, where you can see that the photos are neatly positioned above the summary of the actual components present within this. This is something that you'll find throughout each system has the ability to create that nice flow where if you're choosing these reference photos under the description, have them there, let the client visually understand what they should be interpreting, and then read through the components, just like a manual. Now, in both these situations, I've indicated that there were no recommendations above it. However, I've been cherry picking in that situation in reference to my next tip. But think back to the previous examples I've shown you and how after the recommendations, the general information fell directly onto its own page. So even if you had a series of recommendations and then you had your general information reference photos, they would still likely position themselves neatly in its own area without anything in between, such as service cable and entrance overhead and then 2 photos. It makes more sense to have them positioned in such a way because above it you'll have either no recommendations or you'll have photos of recommendations. After that, you'll cap off your photo taking with additional photos. Then the rest of it is simply text for reference. And if you are interested in how this is done, under the general information section or the description in many of your accounts, you can click blank item. At the blank item screen, you'll enter in what you'd like to create your My Item as. I would consider things or suggest, say, general view of roof. Then you can also use general view of exterior, electric panel, structure, insulation, attic, whichever you may like to use. Other extra photos of, reference, additional, pretty much anything you can think of or you'd prefer to use as that statement to tie in the photos. You're then going to click Make this a My Item and save and close. You'll see it now part of your list. And anything with an asterisk before the first letter, like you can see here before general, is a My Item. So we know that we can now select this here, and in turn in Horizon Mobile, we can select it and or search for it. So this ties in with my 5th tip of today, which is utilize recommendation overview. So for situations where a system is in good condition and you have no recommendations, there's actually an option that largely gets overlooked, and I've seen very few people actually take advantage of it, and it's called the recommendation overview. And within it, there is an option called No System Recommendations offered as a result of this inspection. And it's not only a great spot to indicate that you've observed and inspected the system and there are no issues, but in case you want to include some additional photos, it's a prime opportunity spot for that. Not only by filling out the recommendation overview with the no recommendations are offered option, it helps explicitly tell the client that their system is without issue. You didn't observe anything at this time. Furthermore, it provides consistency through the report because without this option selected, which you'll see in a second, you actually don't have your recommendations appear in the report. So if a system's in good condition, you have selected no deficiencies, you may have noticed that the actual heading recommendations disappears from your report. Well, let's say that this happens to the electrical system, but you're midway, as the client was midway into the report at this point, when you get to electrical, maybe there was a couple issues on the roof or with the exterior. So you had a recommendations heading, but they get to electrical. Now your recommendation heading is gone. Yes, you're an inspector, and that may be an intuitive to you that means there are no recommendations. But let me tell you, I bought a home inspection. I had no clue when the recommendations are missing what that meant. And in fact, I called my home inspector and said, hey, I think part of your report is missing. And they had to inform me otherwise. And yes, it was a Carson Dunlop inspector. And yes, by happenstance, that's the nature of the game. But it still was something that caught me off guard. And in the future, it's one of the things that I've encouraged people to try to address by using the no recommendations are offered option. It creates the heading, it provides that statement, and the client is better aware of exactly what you inspected and what you did or didn't find. Now, I've simply repositioned the two photos from my previous tip into this recommendation overview. Again, why I would consider doing this over putting them as reference photos in the description is that if we are favoring recommendations first, when we do have systems with issues, they will be at the forefront of the report and each system. So then when they get to a system that is in good condition, at the very least, the photos are in the same position as the previous systems, and it allows them to quickly read over that one line, see the photos as reference, and then continue along the report. So I find that in favor of putting photos in the description, typically I would only place photos in the description if a system is in relatively good condition, because if it's in poor condition or there's recommendations, I would favor creating images or taking images, pardon me, for the recommendations as opposed to taking photos and putting them in the recommendations and then in the description can be a bit much for the client and hard to decipher really what the value of each photo is. So in the importance and order of taking photos, I would tend to even favor putting my reference photos here when a system is in good condition. And you can see again, even with the electric panel, what it does is it simply pushes them up. They read the one sentence, they see the photos as reference, and then they read through the description, which, let's be real, most people are going to skim through anyways. Not that I encourage that, but I did myself until I learned the value of reading through a report when unfortunately I had a leak a couple months later that I didn't read in the report about. Now here we are back at the report writing screen, and again what we are going to do is look at the recommendation overview topic. This is something that is often overlooked. It's right at the top of the list, right under general, and when we open that up, we have some new custom items in there, but specifically, no, because I'm under roofing, it says roofing as opposed to exterior or structure. No roofing recommendations are offered. We click on that. Once it's selected, we can now, if we're in the Horizon Mobile, assign photos to this. So once it's synced up, they're already there. Or again, if we're creating the report from the report writing screen on Horizon Web, we can now associate photos and move along. Our next tip is don't forget to caption your photos. So the reality is many readers, like myself, will skim through the report, will naturally gravitating toward content with photos. It really does help explain the issue when they have photos, and the captions beneath those photos help explain the issue a little bit better. So it makes sense for you to try to utilize those caption fields and take advantage of them. Now, there's actually two spots that you can use a caption field. In line on the photo, you can overlay it, or below the photo itself. And I'm going to suggest that you use the caption field below each photo. I think that by putting the caption on top of the photo, it distracts from the image itself. So let's not take up that valuable real estate by putting a caption on top of the photo, but position it neatly below. So that way, if people are actually just simply skimming through for photos as reference, they see the photo, they see the caption underneath, and they can get a good frame of reference. Now, the caption field supports up to 45 characters, so you got to make sure you're clear and concise. Fortunately, we do have an auto captioning feature. So if you don't have it enabled, it's under Profile. Got to make sure you do. I'd be glad to show anyone in case you don't, but I think hopefully for the most part, everyone here does have it already set up. That means when you select a condition, it captions the photo with that condition. Bear in mind, there's a few little nuances to that you need to overcome, which we'll caption or cover in a second. But largely, it's a great feature that's a time saver, definitely used as a starting point. However, when you have, say, one-word conditions such as leak, damaged, or rust, the caption's also identical and similar for multi-word conditions like cupping, curling, and clawing. And I would suggest you take 30 seconds and revise those to be a bit more precise when you're at the report writing screen. And what I mean by that is, you can see here we've got a photo of some cupping shingles and the default caption, cupping, curling, clawing. Just revise that, cupping asphalt shingles. It allows the reader who may not have ever looked at a roof in any greater detail to understand exactly what the photo is demonstrating. The same goes here for cracked. We know that we're looking at cracked shingles. Reality is someone just looking at that photo who's never looked at a roof before, who's not a roofer, is not a home inspector, not in the construction industry, may not have any clue. It may also look to them like bricks or tiles. So in this case, being a bit more specific, yes, they should be looking at the information above these photos to get a full frame of reference. But let's use lowest common denominator and try to achieve that everyone can understand from every different angle. So make sure your captions, when you can, are a bit more precise. Here, again, simply revising the caption from rain cap missing or damaged to missing rain cap, or rain cap missing if you didn't want to revise the entire thing would be certainly sufficient. And again, they may not simply be aware that what a rain cap is in relation to what they're looking at. So hopefully you would use that caption field to further elicit that. And here again, I've just simply revised it to missing cap shingles from missing loose or torn, so they have a frame of reference of what shingles are actually missing from it. Simple changes can go a long way, and remember, the goal is to think about the end user, your reader, who may not have any experience in anything related to construction inspection, and so we want to give them a frame of reference at every opportunity to understand what we're trying for them to understand and to interpret. So not only are the recommendations really important, but it's also important to use the available space like caption fields to actually go in and help your clients understand what they're looking at. Another opportunity that I see a lot of individuals not aware of within Horizon are the ancillary reports. And I guess it's a matter of terminology difference, because I know a number of other competitors would call ancillaries templates, and we have taken the odd road out as far as the ancillaries are concerned. We call templates ancillaries, where everyone calls them templates. But basically, ancillaries are additional free reports that you can have on your account. So if you do services like mold, radon, perhaps you do thermal imaging, we have a dedicated report that you can include within yours for that. In fact, there's 31, I don't know how two appeared there, there's 31 free ancillaries for you. And if you're interested in seeing where that list is, I'll be glad to show you at the end of this lesson. But you can really run the gamut of what you can include here. So we have, for example, termite inspections, pool and spa. If you'd prefer to break up things like bedrooms and bathrooms into their own dedicated sections, we can achieve that for you. We have a section dedicated to recall check. So these are great because you can have them added to your account. Now, don't add all 31, because select the ones you're going to actually use. And they only appear in the actual body of the report if you put information in them. So you don't have to worry if you selected, wood destroying organisms and you got no termites today. Well, that's not going to show up in that person's report. So things like that can go a long way for you to streamline all of your data into one report, as opposed to having to use multiple pieces of software or even hire someone else out, because now you can do it yourself within the software, provided you have the equipment. If you're also using Horizon Mobile, you can actually record this data directly into Horizon Mobile so you can seamlessly sync it back into your app. At Carson Dunlop, two of the very popular ancillary reports we use are Recall Check, and you can see here an example of it. Now, the great thing about this is we simply take a photo of the boilerplate. Recall Check does all the extra work. So no fussing about with having to type down the model and serial number. Snap the photos. When you publish the report, you send it out to Recall Check. They send you back the report that you can then deal with the client about. Other thing that's very common here at Carson Dunlop is thermal imaging. I hope a lot of you individuals are taking advantage of thermal imaging. It's a great upsell and revenue earner. We find that we can typically get clients to agree on over 50% of our inspections, and it's an extra couple $100 each time they do. So definitely food for thought. If you're not already offering thermal imaging, get trained up, get a FLIR camera, and consider adding it to your ancillary list. And here's an example of one of our thermal imaging reports that you could also have courtesy of the ancillaries. We come to our 8th tip here, which is make use of the appendix. I often find that the appendix is underutilized. And now this is the caveat to this tip is depending upon maybe your standards, federal or state legislature, things like that, you may not be able to cross promote as much as we can in certain areas. But I find that the appendix is a great opportunity to promote applicable referral services. So let's say you know a certain area, like the beaches in Toronto, is a very high likelihood for termite or pest issues. Now, one of the things we offer is a referral service for a pest inspection. They may decline it at the time of the inspection. Fine, that's understandable. But what we can do, and this is for the greater good of the customer, is in the appendix include a referral to a pest inspection company for inspections in that area. This way, at the end of the report, they're aware that even though we may not have found any evidence of a pest intrusion or issue, that the area is prone to them and they can contact this company, not my company, but a trusted company, to reach out and speak to them about roach infestations. This also then just prompts them to understand, even if they don't call the company here, that it's something that they may consider doing if they are very interested in purchasing the property and living there long term. If you are also perhaps a pest inspector, you could also offer your own referral related service. That also applies for things like a pool inspection. We don't inspect pools at Carson Dunlop, but I know a number of inspectors are certainly already qualified to inspect pools alongside homes. If that's the case, in my situation, what I found is when I was booking inspections, if someone was not sure if they're quite yet on getting the property, maybe largely determined on the inspection you're about to do for them, they may be reluctant to also pay for a pool inspection at that time. Perhaps 2 or 3 days later, you check in with them. Hey, you know what? Based upon the findings in the report, they're going to go ahead and purchase the property. Their offer is accepted. Now, the pool inspection is much more concerning to them because they actually want to take advantage of that pool, and spending the extra $150 is nothing to them at this point in time. So looking at the back of that report, maybe it jogs their memory. Oh, John Doe. Yeah, let's call him again. He was a really great guy. I loved talking to him. He was really friendly, followed up with us about the inspection. Lo and behold, you get yourself some extra business for one of those related services. So it's definitely something that you can utilize the appendix for. You can also use the appendix for non-promotional related items, like signed paper contracts. Now, ideally, you're going to get everyone to sign your contract online electronically. Takes care of everything, so you don't have to worry about these old paper contracts. But you know what? Sometimes you need to bring one on site to get it signed, maybe an elderly couple. Well, in those situations, you know that you can print out a contract that's fully branded with your information, the inspection address, and it also has the client's sorry about that. It also has the client's name at the bottom with a spot for them to sign and date. So in this situation, after getting the contract back, we can upload it to the appendix. It's now stored permanently with the report digitally. So unfortunately, if you lose the signed contract, well, you've got it already tied in with the report permanently, so you don't have to worry about that. You can also utilize it for third-party documents. Perhaps you did upsell a third-party service like a radon or mold test that you don't offer directly, but you coordinated, and maybe you'd like to combine those results within your report itself. Well, you can include them in the appendix as third-party documents. And this is something that I would suggest everyone consider doing, including home maintenance tips and reminders. In fact, if you aren't already using our home reference book, which is available in the report publishing option, you should take advantage of it, as it has over 400 pages of self-help information that your clients can take advantage of and utilize. Now, I've saved the last tip because this one may be the most controversial to some degree, as it's not directly related to Horizon, but more specifically your business at large and the visual appeal of your business. And that is customize report title page. So at the end of the day, your report is your business card. And making those first impressions count not only on site, but from the report appearance can go a long way to encouraging repeat business from agents, or having a client perhaps leave a favorable review with you on Facebook or Yelp. So you want to make your report stand out, and you want to make your report look unique to your business and branding, right? So you want the title page to have that same essence as perhaps your business card already does. Now, the other benefit of having a custom report title page is that no one's going to have the same looking report, so you stand alone. And in the long term, it's a very inexpensive investment. Now, this is not something that we're trying to promote in-house to make extra money on. I'm talking about going out and speaking to graphic designers or some type of designer that is functional to do these things for you, that will take your current design and pattern and make it into an actual title page that you can use within the system. Yes, we have a lot of great current templates that you can use, and we are looking to expand upon those lists. However, if you are looking for an immediate solution for yourself, you should consider getting a custom title page created. As an example, I had one done, and this is my current look. Now, again, it's nothing flashy because I'm more of a clean-cut, streamlined kind of guy. You can see here, though, that it's modernized. We have some, angles to it. The colors are nice and appealing. We have the photo of the house itself, my logo, some nice townhouses in the back. So this is something that can go a long way to really capture the essence of my style, how I want myself and my reports to be presented. So food for thought, this is something that you could consider as well. There's actually a dedicated tutorial in our help section so that you could refer that to, say, any designer that you may choose to hire. Also, we are always looking for feedback on our current system, templates, themes, things of that nature. So definitely feel free to offer that for us. And as we're looking to improve the software, we'll consider those things as the opportunities for us to enhance and make you happier with the product. But this is another suggestion that I largely have. Consider getting a custom title page done. And usually you're only paying maybe a couple $100, and it will pay for itself in the long run. I also have to mention, as we're coming close to the Q&A period, that we do have a refer a friend and get 1 month free subscription. So if you do refer a friend and they subscribe to Horizon, we offer the promotion where you'll get a month free extended on your subscription. So if you do have anyone interested, please feel free to suggest and refer them to us. And if they mention your name, we'll be sure to extend your subscription. And if you have any questions on that, just let me know, because we have a Black Friday deal currently on for new Horizon users. So even extra incentive for your friends or family that are in the industry to perhaps sign on to Horizon. Sorry about the promo piece there, folks, but I always want to get more users on board. And that ultimately is going to take us to our Q&A period. So first and foremost, I want to thank everyone that stayed in attendance for the entire duration. I know sometimes I can be a bit long-winded, but I am quite passionate about reporting and Horizon. I hope that everyone did learn something and that can take away a few different tips or tricks to improve the appearance and delivery of the report. Again, largely we're focused around restructuring the report to make it easier for the client to read and interpret, get what's important at the start. Now, from here, what I'd like to do is turn the tables and see if there are any ongoing questions that I've yet to address, and I'd like to focus on those for the next remaining few minutes. Just as a reminder, if anyone's not interested in staying for the Q&A period or doesn't have time, I will have this recording available either on Friday or Monday of next week for everyone available online for you to review. Again, for anyone potentially leaving, I hope that everyone does have a fantastic Thanksgiving tomorrow. I'm quite envious of the amount of turkey, pie, and hopefully a bit of ham that a lot of you will be eating. So drink a few beers for me, and let's get on to a few questions here. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't start from the beginning, but I'd be glad to cover anything in the first 7 minutes that you might have missed. So if you still are here, please just let me know where you started off, and I will be glad to circle back to that and cover anything that you might have missed. So just let me know where you might have left off there. With regard to photos, you're absolutely correct. I took all photos in landscape as opposed to the few that I showed as a comparison. You want to take your photos in landscape. It's going to make the world of difference as far as formatting and structure. Side by side, they look much better. They make the page fit much nicer. Your go-to solution for having things flow much better. And again, phone or tablet, you just simply turn it to the side. I know it gets a little bit tedious, but a couple inspections, you'll get in the habit of it. Using a digital camera, go into the settings. You can change the resolution or the mode to landscape. You're good to go. As far as saving photos, within the app, so within a given inspection, if you go in and you take 100 photos and you sync, not a problem. Now, if you take 300 photos, right, for one inspection, it's going to cap out at 250 as far as the system is concerned. But trying to sync 250 photos, remember that when you take a photo in the app, right, it's several megabytes per photo. So you try to upload several hundred photos, it's a very long and tedious actual transfer. So I would say that it's best practice to limit the number of photos you take per inspection in the app to within 100. Two things. It's forcing you to be more selective with the photos you take, so you're training yourself to really capture the essence of what you're trying to document. And secondly, if you're taking 300 photos, you're probably spending a lot of time on site, perhaps some of it unnecessarily. I mean, unless it's a really large home. So ideally, then you'll also start reducing the amount of time you're spending on the actual inspection itself. It's hard to say the average number of photos that perhaps one of our inspectors may use. I would say that on average, they would probably take around 100, perhaps even a bit more for the entire inspection. Now, actually appearing in the report, it comes down to how many recommendations. Our philosophy is focus on recommendations first, documenting them with photos. So if we were, for example, having 20 recommendations throughout a home, each of those perhaps with 2 photos, we may be looking at 40 photos throughout the report. Perhaps the inspector, due to flair, wanted to include a couple reference photos, maybe looking at an extra 6 or 10, but maybe 40 to 50 photos in a report, I would say roughly on average, given maybe a 20 condition home or so. I mean, hopefully you don't have that many issues ever present with the home or ones that you need to fully document. How do I edit title page photos? Well, you know what? Let's get out of this webinar, or not the webinar, PowerPoint here for a second here, folks. Let me get into my account. Everyone can still see here, right? All right, great. Let me just zoom in a bit, make this a little easier for everyone here. Okay, so you asked, how do you edit photo titles? Let me go ahead and let's get into the edit screen here. Okay, so in this case, you can see I'm at the edit screen. And again, what I did is I clicked on the pencil here. Actually, let me do a better representation by selecting an actual issue here. I'm going to select granule loss. I'm going to go in here. I've got some photos of granule loss here. Right here, perfect. So you can see as I select the photo, it automatically captions it with granule loss. Now, if I wanted to revise that, I could easily come into here and change it from granule loss to anything else of my choosing. And again, this supports up to 45 characters. Now I prefer this field. I'm just going to copy this. Granular loss as a caption isn't really that bad because it's actually quite accurate. More so, again, as I mentioned, the multi-word conditions or single ones are the ones I would tend to revise just for clarity's sake. The reason why I also favor this field is if we click on the photo, we can actually add a caption using this add to photo. But in my opinion, and we can drag this around, but in my opinion, this just is a bit more distracting. It takes away from a piece of the photo. You can see it here, and when I preview the report in a moment, let's get in here, right here. So in comparison, we have the same photo, one with cracked, and again, I should have wrote cracked shingles. I'm not even following my own protocols here, shame on me, versus cracked shingles. And again, it just simply, I find that it appears nicer underneath the photo. It's a nice spot. You can have 45 characters. I mean, if you need more than 45 characters, you should be writing a note which would fall under the condition as opposed to a caption. Caption is a clear, concise, small message that helps articulate what the photo is. So I prefer this over that method of captioning. That is, again, a matter of preference, but this also means you don't have to edit the photo. And because the auto caption includes at least a portion of this already, it makes it easier to finish off the caption. I don't have a recommendation for photo resolution. In my experience, at least on my phone, it doesn't allow me to set the resolution. So if you're using a digital camera and you can set the resolution, I would say don't go too extreme. You don't need to take like 11 megapixel photos. Anything within high def range, so just 1024 by 1080, like you're looking at a high resolution monitor, that would be sufficient. Because remember, look here. So these photos, even if I took them at 11 megapixels, look at the size of them on my computer screen. Even if I zoomed in a bunch, right? They're not that big. So bearing in mind that they're not that big, why take up extra space on your camera and eat up your memory bank when you don't need to? So take them at a reasonable resolution if you can adjust that, or you can set the megapixel size. So that way you're eating up less of your memory. The photos themselves will just be as fine. And again, especially if you make sure that you're taking the right perspective and angle, make sure your thumb's not in the photo, you don't have a glare or a shadow in it. Also, what I strongly suggest is avoid using the digital zoom on your camera when you can. Instead of the digital zoom, which is a very poor zoom resolution, just move in a few feet. Yes, you may capture less overall of the image itself, but as long as you're focusing on the core critical item, that's the most important part. You can, crop out the rest, so to speak, just by moving in or out a few feet. So that's also what I suggest in favor of using the digital zoom for getting the clearest quality photo. As far as including video, we don't support video directly inside the report itself. Because the report is available electronically, we want everything to be available electronically. And a video embedded in a PDF would mean that it could be 60, 100, even more megabytes, which would be unreasonable for most people to get, say in a form of an email. So if you are wanting to include video, not a problem. Upload it to a video hosting service like YouTube or Vimeo. You can actually have a private unlisted account so no one sees the videos except by accessing the link in your report. And what you can do here is, by happenstance, let's just click on this blank item here. Oops, I just didn't show where I was before. So I'm under my recommendations. I click on blank item. If I go in here into next, so I just bypassed filling out the recommendation there, not to bog you guys down with that. We have a URL or web link field. So this is a prime spot where I could put it. I'm just going to put youtube.com here. And I'm just going to call this video of roof inspection. I'm going to make it a my item, because then again, if we're going to do this in the future, we can easily reference this and tie it in with the my item instead of having to recreate it each time. We'll save this. Let's do a refresh of my report here. What did I tie that to? It's my item. Okay, let's just see here. Well, I didn't do something correct. 1 second here. Oh, 1 second here. I forgot the HTTP. Oh, 1 second. HTTP. YouTube.com. Now let's close this and do another preview. Sorry about the delay there. Okay, let's see here. Perfect. So my apologies for that. I forgot. So prime example of a quick mistake that you could easily encounter. Got to include that http:// Easy solution instead of typing that out, quite tedious. Just go to YouTube. You'll be in your channel. You'll open up your video and you'll copy the link. Now I'm not going to copy that, and then you would reference that. But sorry about the weird choice of video there. But you can see here when you click on this, it takes me right to YouTube where I can now watch that specific video. And again, this would be unlisted, so you're not going to get some random YouTuber checking out your videos unless you want them to. Only people with direct access to the report. With regard to the appendix, yeah, for sure. So going to the report publishing screen here, and we can see that there's the appendix here. It's right at the top. It's sort of nestled at the far right. It's called Edit Appendix. Now there's two situations you can use this for. So we have at the top for this report only. So you got something specific for this report, like a signed contract, right? That radon test results, things like that are third party, you'd upload to this report only. But if you actually have items like perhaps brochures for a pool inspection, maybe termite inspections, well, you're going to add them to actually the report itself, but you're not going to tie them into this report only. We have a library section down below right here. And what you can do is you can actually add your brochures like I have for the pool and pests down here in the library. And then I have the option of adding them to this report or any future report, so they're stored permanently in my system. So in this case, if I just went ahead and deleted this for a moment and deleted this one here, just give me a moment. Now I could just re-add them. And let's go ahead and add the next one. So now, in this case, I would probably actually favor the contract if it was signed in person over these two first, so you can actually sort of position things by uploading them in the order that you'd like. Then I have the radon test results, and then I have my two promotional services. So this is how you could start adding to your own appendix. Again, for situational items, you're going to add them to this report only. For brochures, refer a friend, things like that, add them into the library and then add them to your report as you may need. I also suggest you leave them appearing in the appendix. You can select them to appear under a specific system, but what happens is it just adds the page right under that system. It looks really ugly. So just leave them in the appendix. That's really what it's designed for. As far as individual companies using Horizon in any given area, I'll be honest with you, I have no actual clue on that. John or Ed would have better statistics than myself. I know I've spoken with a number of individuals across all of the continental USA, and I'm hopeful to speak with many more of you, but I'm not sure as far as the actual number. That would be something more above my pay grade, so to speak. But if you are really curious on that, inquire with John. He's my boss, the go-to guy. Many of you have probably already spoken to him. Uploading the custom title page. All right, now caveat again to that, if you missed the uploading custom title page, is that it is something that I had designed by a designer, right? I myself am not by any stretch of the imagination a design guy. I wanted to showcase that as something with a little bit of an investment. It can really pay dividends to the general appearance of your report. Now, if you do have a designer or you yourself are comfortable with making some design changes, you can go into Help. And within Help, what we're going to do is we are going to go into, let me see here, level 1. Where is custom title page? I forgot where it was. There we go. Okay, we're not going to do it through the help method. We're going to go through profile. I'm more familiar with profile. Little egg on my face there, but let's go here. So we're going to go down to profile. We're going to go down to settings under report config. We're going to go by title page style and click the settings button there. And from here, the one thing that you'll have to bear in mind is that the 4 template styles, there's a different basically instruction for them. So what you first want to do is you'll click on edit this template, and from the one that you want to modify, you'll see that on the right hand side underneath it says ultimate title page customization, and you can see that there's a view tutorial option here. So it was in level 2, the actual tutorial there, and working with your title page. So here, as we scroll down below this, it will give you some framework on how to create a custom title page and what you'll need to basically recreate it in the format of like a Photoshop document to upload. Now we do have a working PSD, which is a Photoshop document that has the actual components present. So you can then overlay your own images. And if that's something that any of you are interested in, just let me know in the chat or questions, and I'll be sure to send that directly to you individually. It's somewhat of a larger file, so I'll just send it out to everyone. And most people, if they're not interested or don't have that capability, just be not of use to them. Now, if you are interested in more information about like custom title page design, again, just simply let me know, and I'd be glad to speak more about that, and even have a few companies to suggest that we know are comfortable with that type of design work. If you are taking photos with a camera, then reporting at home, that's certainly an understandable approach to reporting, and I know a number of inspectors do take that approach. I just want to touch on that for a second here, not to go too far off stream, but I hope that if you are utilizing a camera and then reporting back at home, you're aware of the gallery, which is the photo-driven reporting option. If you're not, let me know. I will be glad to set aside time tomorrow or on Friday. I know tomorrow's a holiday, so many of you will be too busy, but if you'd like some time tomorrow, Friday, or next week early, we can go over this. But as a quick overview, with this gallery on, it shows you all the photos that you've uploaded, and from here you can actually recreate the report from the photos. As an example here, I have a photo of cupping shingles. I click on it, I go down to my type of roof, sloped roof asphalt shingles. I select cupping, curling, clawing. It's now added the photo to the recommendation, and I can start filling it out. Found various spots of the roof. They should get this replaced as soon as possible. Add it to summary. Just as a reference, I'll go to next. Photos already selected. Save and close. Or if I wanted to select another photo, maybe I forgot to select the other one. Boom. Save and close. So for any of you that aren't aware of photo-driven reporting and you prefer to take photos with a camera and recreate the report at home, please talk to me if you aren't aware of the gallery, or turn it on, practice with it. You'll find that you start cutting down a dramatic amount of your time back at home writing the report. With regard to setting up auto captioning, please go to Profile. Once you're at Profile, I'm going to get you to go down to our Section 3, Report Configuration. And within Report Configuration, we have auto captioning of photos. I suggest you turn that on. I do apologize if you hear my dogs in the background. They're getting a bit rowdy. Now, looking at my reporting settings, you may also notice that I don't have photo and recommendation numbering on. Now, if your standards or your state and federal legislature somehow require that, please leave them on. But I have them off because I find that if I was referencing say, hey, go to photo 10, you know what most clients say to me? What page is that on? Or if I said, same with recommendations, go to recommendation 20. Where is that again? So yes, it's something that you can have on, but I have them off just in case you're curious, because oftentimes I simply reference page as opposed to photo or recommendation number. Make it easier for the actual person to navigate to if you were trying to direct them somewhere in the report. With regard to deleting previously saved notes, let me speak to you on that tomorrow, as that's something that we'll have to look in a little bit in more detail. I've set aside your comment and question, and I'm going to reach out to you directly tomorrow. I promise to you on that. Or pardon me, not to, well, I'll email you tonight, and then once you're available, as I know tomorrow's a holiday, once you're back from Thanksgiving, once you reply, I will explore that question with you, Todd. So again, just to reinforce, auto captioning of photos under Profile, Section 3, Report Config, and we just turn it on. So if it says off, we want to make sure, again, we turn it on. Now, whenever you select a condition, it's going to auto caption it, give you that base condition so you can work from there. One of the things that you got to be mindful of with the auto caption here, folks, though, let me go back to my account here. It's a great feature, but you know, sometimes there's little tips and tricks to everything. So let's go back to my cupping shingles. We got the caption here, cupping shingles, right? Great, that's an accurate caption. But let's go ahead and like unselect these photos for a moment, okay? Maybe instead of cupping shingles, let's pretend they were cracked shingles for today. Let's as a hypothetical. Maybe I misclicked originally in the app. So I'm going to reselect these photos, but you'll see that it maintains the original caption. It's sort of a catch-22, right? Can't have everything without a little bit of the bad. So because it does initially take the caption, at this time it doesn't update when you select a new item. So if you have selected an item, like in this case we selected a photo of cupping shingles, but perhaps it was actually a crack, you just want to be mindful that you want to change the caption to reflect the new condition. So if this was actually cracked shingles, I would update that to cracked shingles. Hopefully you're not selecting and taking photos in the wrong spot too often, so you won't have to actually concern yourself much with this. But more specifically, where I find that caption will come into play where you might miss yourself is if by happenstance you had taken some spare photos under, say, general private notes. When you have, say, like, I'm just going to select, these will all have different captions because I've captioned them, so it's not a good reference. There we go, there's one that says spare photos. We can work with one. So in this case, I got my spare photo. Well, let's say, you know what, I want to repurpose that in the report. I unselected to go put it elsewhere. Well, guess what? It's going to say spare photo underneath it. And I've seen this quite often. And this is the biggest one I want you to avoid, is making sure if you take a spare photo and then you want to actually put it into the report, just be mindful that you change the caption so it doesn't accidentally say spare photo in the report, because I'm sure you'll be kicking yourself when you find that later on as you're reading through it. With regard to ancillary reports, if you click on help, and from help, we go to level 2, pardon me, tutorials. Just going to full screen this here, and we have add-on / ancillaries. If you click on that, so my colleague Ariel, I'm sure probably all of you have spoken to him numerous times. He actually can add these to your account. Now, you don't actually need to call him. You could if you want. You can also just email him. There's also a little request form at the bottom here. You can see right here. But basically, here's the 30, we've actually added a new one. So there's 32 ancillaries that we offer. It allows you to break down different components or different reports that you can then have included. You can also reach out to myself. Everyone here has my email, my phone number, and let me know what you would like on your account, and I'd be glad to add them as well. So I'm definitely here to help out in that capacity. May take me, maybe 24 or a little bit more than that hours to get them on, but I'll be sure to always reply to you once it's added on there for you. So again, go to help, go to level 2, click on add-on/ancillaries, and here you got them all. I don't see any more questions coming through to the chat. I will give it one last opportunity to see any questions come through that I might not have addressed or that you can think of. I'd be glad to take care of them. If anything you can think of after the session that you'd like addressed, I'm always here to do a one-on-one or simply respond to your emails. I would also, if anyone has any feedback as far as what you'd like us to cover in the future, be it from marketing presentations at a real estate office to determining defects, things of that nature, just let me know what you would be interested in covering. And I would appreciate that insight, because obviously we want to cater these sessions to what means the most to yourself and how you can grow your business, because we want to work hand in hand with you so you can achieve your dreams. I appreciate everyone's attendance. Thank you very much for the well wishes. And again, thank you very kindly for the kind words. I hope everyone has a fantastic Thanksgiving. I don't see, again, any other questions coming through, so I will be capping this off in a moment. As far as the report itself and the custom title page, I'll send you an email, Michael, just to sort of touch on that, as I agree there's certainly things that we could do. So I'll send you some insights onto that as well. And just as a reminder, folks, we will have a recap of this available in blog format and a webinar recording that you can watch, or you can look back to at any time. It will be available either on Friday or Monday of next week. Most certainly. Again, so if anyone would like me to send additional details on things like the custom title page, perhaps the PSD, or you just have more information that you'd like me to address with you, just shoot me an email. I'm going to put my email in the chat in case anyone needs it, just as a reference here. So anything that you might not have got addressed in the session, that you might have missed, that you want me to cover or just recap with you individually, let me know. And again, we do offer the one-on-one sessions, which are complimentary to Horizon users. So if there's anything you want to set aside time for, be it what we've covered today, ancillaries, Horizon Marketer, Action List, just let me know. You've got my schedule. We are always here to help out. As far as writing reports, we do have a lot of good information on that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to send you a quick private message in the chat, and you can sort of let me know where you're maybe struggling or what you're looking to discuss, and we can see how we can help you out. Everyone who has notified me they would like the email regarding custom title pages will receive that. It will be sent out tomorrow morning, as I do need to collect the PSD from my work computer, and I am at home right now, but I will ensure that everyone does receive that no later than tomorrow afternoon, so you'll have that by the time you are finished digesting turkey and recovering from your comas. Not a problem at all. Make sure to get that all out to you. And what I'll even do is I'll speak to the gentleman who set up mine, see if I can give you the framework from that. So if you like sort of the structure with just how it was laid out, want to swap out a few colors, I'll see if I can get that included as well. All right. I see no other questions except for the request for the title page coming on through. I've made sure to record everyone here. And again, and everyone I have sent private messages to, if you could just do me a favor, if you haven't already responded, please do, so I know to make sure that you do want that updated information. I'll be sure to get that off to you as soon as possible. And then again, you will have this as a recap in our blog as well. Thank you for your attendance. Please feel free to send me any feedback on today's session or what you'd like me to cover in the future. And again, reach out to me for any questions, concerns, or immediate assistance you ever need. Have a good night, everyone. And again, happy Thanksgiving.